Hey guys, super excited today. In the past couple of days, I've been working on a very exciting project and I want to share with you what I did basically. I will show you how you can have an autonomous system that is able to talk to customers, answer any questions about the business, give code to the customer, and record the customer details and put it into an Excel file or a Google Sheet in this case, and also summarize all the conversation it had with the customer and record that into the file so that when you check that file, you will have a list of hot leads. All you have to do is just go and call them and schedule an appointment. So what I want to do in this video, I want to give you a high level understanding of how an AI system like this works. That's what we're going to do today. It's not going to be technical. If you want to understand how an AI agent works, this is the video for you. So make sure to watch it till the end. I will keep it simple. Let's get started. All right, so we are here on a platform called VoiceFlow. This is where our entire automation lives. It could look a bit intimidating, but don't worry because I will explain basically all of it. We have a lot of these blocks that we connect to each other with these lines, and that defines how the program flows. So you can build these AI agents without having any coding experience at all, simply by thinking about what you want to accomplish and then arranging the appropriate blocks in the appropriate order. What AI has to do with any of this. Actually, a decent number of these blocks, for example, this one is a prompt to a language model like GPT. The reason we call them AI agents is because of these prompts that they can use in the program execution. So this is a key thing to understand with all of these AI tools, that they leverage one of these language models. And this is where much of the value is coming from. So let me start off by just giving you a high level overview of what each of these sections are doing. And then we can dive deeper into the particular blocks and I will explain how they work. The first thing that we do here is obtaining the problem. So this is what this section is doing. And then we have this tiny part here. This is the intent classification. So once we have the problem as spelled out by the customer, we want to narrow it down to two key intents. And one of those intents is that the customer will want to ask a question, right? So that would be handled in this part. If they want to ask a question, that would involve a simple database search and then taking whatever we could gather from the database and displaying it to the customer. The other type of intent is when the customer wants to get a code, in which case we'll first determine which service are they interested in. Then we'll calculate a code for them, display the code, and ask for their details, such as a name and a phone number. And then we'll take those details and we will put it into Google Sheet along with some other details, including any prior questions that they might have had or anything important that happened here. So now that you understand how it works high level, let me zoom in a little bit and walk you through at the block level, and then you will have an even better understanding of how this is working. So whenever the program is initiated, it will obviously start from this green start section. And the first thing that we'll do, will display this welcome message to the customer. So this is actually a hard-coded message. There's nothing fancy going on here. Then the customer will have an option to say something. This block is called the capture block. And what the capture block does, well, capture what the customer says, and it will save it to a variable. So a variable in programming is just a place where you can store data temporarily. So it's not a database, but it's just placed in a memory which you can use until the program is running. So whatever the user replies, we store it into this variable which you name first user reply, and then the program execution will flow to this section. And here we have our first encounter with the AI, because this block involves a prompt. This is actually a set block which is used on VoiceFlow to give value to variables, right? So remember here we just simply listen to what the customer said and we assigned it to the first user reply variable. But another way to assign values to variables is to run a prompt and take the return value from the prompt and put it into the variable. So this is what we do here. We have this prompt. If I click here, you can view what we have in this prompt. You can pause the video and you can read the text if you're interested. Just think about it as the text that you would copy and paste into ChatGPT. Then you would get a reply from ChatGPT based on this prompt. And then this reply that we get from ChatGPT is the reply that will stick into this problem summary variable. And if I just go back here for a second, here we can specify the language model. And this is currently using the GPT-4o mini, which is the one that is used by ChatGPT at the moment. We have some other ones as well. So then we just output this problem summary. And the way the prompt was phrase, it will actually end with a question. So the customer will know that they will have to say something, and we are listening to whatever they say, and we will save it to this last user as variable, which is a system supplied variable to store the last interaction from the customer, and that will use this reply down here. This is yet another prompt. All it does, it will take the text from the customer and it will determine if they said yes or no, or if they said something totally nonsensical, then it will say no match. Since we designed the prompt in a way that we know what the return output would be from the prompt, we can then just build our logic on top of that. If the confirmed variable is yes, then we route the program to this intent classification part. If no, then we'll apologize for not getting it correctly, and we will ask them to rephrase, and then we will reroute them to this part. And if we have an else block, meaning that they said something which was not interpretable in the context of yes or no, then we will output this message, and then we'll write them back here. These error messages are working in an infinite loop. So as long as you're generating that error, it always reverts you to the part where you will have the opportunity to correct yourself and move forward the program execution. So now assuming the customer confirmed the problem, we will come to this intent classification part, and we'll have a set block on top of this, which contains again yet another prompt, which will set the value of this desired action variable. And what we do here is basically we'll pass in the conversation history. Just think about it like taking all the text that we have in the chat box or the transcription of the phone conversation so far, and we'll just put it into this prompt, and we'll ask the AI to size out the intention of the customer and determine if they want to ask a question or they want to get a code. And there's a little bit of a twist to it because we'll differentiate between two types of situations. One, when they want to get a code, but from the context, we know what service they will want to get the code for, or when we know that they want to get a code, but we have no idea which service they are interested in. We'll handle these two situations slightly differently, but I'll get to this part in a bit. For now, let's just quickly check on the answering part, because this is actually a fairly simple one. Once we know that the intention is to ask a question, we will go straight to the database and we'll pass in the first user reply and the problem summary, and we will query the database. Here on the VoiceFlow, it is called knowledge base, and you have a section. If you go back, you have a section here called knowledge, and you can upload documents or you can refer to websites. This is what's called data sources. You can add data sources by clicking this button here, and this is this data source the program will tap into to retrieve information. So as you can see, I added one simple Word document containing some general information about this business, which I actually just generated with AI for the purpose of this video. So once we tapped into our database and we retrieve some information, we'll use a prompt to generate an answer from whatever we could retrieve from the database. We use this variable called chunks. The chunks variable is where we put the text that we could retrieve from the database. So if we check on here, you can see that the database search will save all the output into this chunks variable. And this is called chunks because output from this query will be broken down into smaller parts called chunks. So just think about it as block of text or sections basically. And then these are what are being written into this variable, right? So here we just use all this information again as input to our prompt, and then whatever we get as an output, we'll directly show to the customer. And then we'll go and ask if there's anything else we can help with. We'll listen to whatever they say, and we'll put it into this last user answer variable. And then again, we'll determine the intent, because at this point, multiple things can happen, similar to what I've already hinted at the codes part, and then we'll get back to it in a minute as well. The first thing that can happen is that we ask, is there anything else I can help you with? And they might have said that, yes, I also want to know if you have an office in Portland, for example. And then we know what their question is. We can directly execute another database search and then generate another answer, and then go back to this section again to ask if there is anything else we can further help. The other thing that can happen is that they simply say yes. So we don't know what the follow-up question would be, in which case we will have this hard-coded message to prompt them to specify the actual question, which we will save into last user answer and then feed it to the database to execute the search on that, show the output, and then drive back them to this section. And then it can also happen that they don't have any more questions, in which case we simply terminate the call. And then the last one is a tricky one, which is kind of bridging these two together, because it can happen that after they ask the question, they actually want to get a price. So we will have to route them to our pricing tool, which I will cover now. But before we even do that, let me just quickly click into this section so you can see what prompt is written here in case you want to pause the video and take a look. So let's just follow along this path. This brings us back to the intent classification part and get a code type of intent, and either a known code or an unknown code, depending on what was discussed earlier and whether or not we have enough information to determine what code the customer would be interested in. So if we do know the service, and that's the easy part, then we'll simply initialize a service type variable with the service type. So this is another prompt, which is basically just a simple prompt including the different services that we have and asking the AI to simply output one of these labels corresponding to whatever intention was determined to be applicable. And if you do not know what code the customer is interested in, then we'll simply ask them. And this is what is happening here. We'll ask the customer directly which service are they interested in, and we have what's called choices here. So these choices are basically predefined intent that will try to tie to the customer a reply. So if I click, for example, on the first one, then you can see that this intent has a description explaining what it is about and then potential sentences that the customer might use when they're talking about this problem. And then it will help our program to take the input it has from the customer and determine what their intention is. So what happens here is that each of these intents have a corresponding stat block where we set service type to that particular intent. So in this case, service type is being set to law moving. And in this case, this is not a prompt value that is being assigned to this variable, but it's actually a simple textual value that will assign depending on what path it was triggered here. We have one section for each of these services. And by the way, we have a no match here as well. So if we cannot determine what the intention is, then we can prompt the customer to be a bit more specific. We'll directly say that, hey, these are our services. Please just pick one from these ones. And then this will kick back to here. So then we'll listen again, and this will continue until they actually decide to comply with our logic. So at this point, we know what the service type is, either through directly asking from the customer or indirectly from figuring out from the context. So the next step we'll do here is we'll ask for their garden size, because obviously the bigger the garden, the more expensive it is to do anything within that garden. Then moving to this section, this is going to be like the most complicated part of this entire automation. And as you will see in a minute, it's not actually that complicated. So what happens here, first of all, is that we have a prompt to extract the actual garden size part from the reply, because the customer reply might be literally anything. We don't know. We are only interested in that part when they talk about the garden size. So we actually want to just get the garden size out of their text. If they say I have a 500 square foot beautiful garden, we just want the 500 because that's the actual size. So this prompt takes care of that. It will grab that value and it will assign to garden size. But this is still not enough. And if you have a little bit of a programming background, then you might already see what the problem is, because this value that we have in garden size is not yet a numerical value. It might be 500, 800, or 1000, which does look like a numerical value, but from a programming standpoint, it is stored as text. So there's no way to perform mathematical operations with it. So we have to make sure that we somehow take this textual value and convert it to a numerical value that the computer can recognize as a number and it can work with it. And this is what this JavaScript block is doing. This is basically all the programming that happens in this automation. We'll take garden size and we will cast it to a number. So what this is doing, it will take garden size and will turn it into a number. And if this fails, it will generate a non-applicable value. So in that case, we will route the program to this no numerical value path, which corresponds to an error message. Please rephrase your reply. This should not really execute at all. If the customer complies and is actually trying to use a tool as intended, then this should not execute. But just in case we have it here, and we'll also point this fail path to it, which only execute if the JavaScript itself fails to run. I don't see any possibility for that, to be honest. So now an interesting part, which is not tricky, but interesting from a technical standpoint, we'll initiate a connection to our calculator. And the calculator lives not on VoiceFlow, but on a different platform called Relevance. So there's a code calculator here, which I built for this exercise on Relevance AI, another platform where you can build AI tools pretty much without coding. It looks like coding, but it's not coding. I'll just explain it in 1 minute. What it does basically, it expects two variables, the service type and the garden size. We already know these variables, right? So these are the variables that we created here. So we have the garden size and we have the service type. So we just take these variables and we'll send it to our calculator. And the calculator will receive these variables along with their value. And then this is being used in here. So we have another block which called LLM, which stands for Large Language Model. And it's basically a prompt, as you can also see here. In this prompt, you can type in anything you want, just like you could type into the ChatGPT box. This is very similar to that. I typed in that you are a cost estimate calculator. This is your role and this is your task to take the service type and the garden size and give a price using the guideline which I provided below. And I provided the guideline like this because for me it's easy to read. For you it might be not easy to read, and that's okay. You can just say if the service type is garden maintenance and garden size is below 500 square feet, then the price is XYZ. You could do this and you could have like a bunch of these conditions, and you could even put them under bullet points. So that would work fine if that's what would be convenient for you. I just use this format. It's actually JSON, and for me it's convenient to read. It has size categories defined here, small, medium, and large. It has some definition, what counts as small, medium, and large, and then the services. And we have the different services here, lawn moving, garden maintenance, etc. And then the prices corresponding to these size categories. So small would be $30, medium $60, large $90, and etc. for the different services. And then this is an example output that this will generate. So you can actually test this. If you type in a service type and a garden size, you can just click run tool, and then it will evaluate the prompt and will show you what would be the output. It's possible to play around with this. So I can change this to 4,000, which would be a large garden, and we can run tool. And then you can see that it's running here, and once it is calculated, it will say that this garden falls into the category of large gardens, and then for the large garden, the price would be $120 for garden maintenance, which seems to be just fine. So this is how this tool works. And these variables will, of course, take not the value that I type in, but the value that they receive from here. So this is what this is doing. It will send these variables to that tool. It will calculate something, and then it will get an output. And that output will be put into this raw code data variable. And then we'll use this variable to display a response, right? So we'll pass in the source type, garden size, raw code data, and then we'll ask this to come up with an answer. We can also just feed the answer that we receive from the code generator directly, but this is how I do it here. And then this part is basically the easy part. Once it is done, we'll ask for the name and the phone number from the user. We'll say what they replied to the last URLs, and then we'll verify if what information they have given to us is actually fully completed. So this is a simple set block, which will set the value of the last response variable to this extract name and phone number prompt. As you can see, it's a simple prompt. It will either write a confirmation message if it was able to detect that the reply contains both the name and the phone number, and if either of those values are missing, it will output a retry. And then we can use that value. If last response does not contain the retry, then we'll go forward with our logic, because that means that we're good to go. And it has an else value, meaning it contains retry, then we'll reprompt. And here in the last response, in case we don't have the retry, we'll have just a simple confirmation message that will expect a yes or no type of answer, depending on whether they agree or not with the captured phone number username combination. And if they do not agree, then again, we'll reprompt them to clarify. All right, and then if they agree, we'll initialize a name and a phone number variable. So we'll use the values from these prompts to extract from the text the name and then the phone number, much the same way. And then in the last step, we will take this data and we will put it into Google Sheets. And the way that works is we use another tool. It's called make.com. So we have a very simple webhook set up here on make.com. A webhook is a place on the internet which listens to incoming connections. You have a URL here, as you can see, and this URL is up and running until you disable this webhook basically, and it is expecting data to arrive. So you can send data to this webhook. And what we do here is that we'll take these variables that we have, the discussion summary. Oh yeah, well, we created the discussion summary here as the last step. This is a very simple prompt where we pass in all the conversation that we had and just ask the AI to summarize everything. So that's what this discussion summary is. So we have the parameters, discussion summary, source type, garden size, etc. And we'll take these parameters and we'll send it to this webhook. Just think about like a big box with some things thrown in there, and then you just send it off with a postman to a particular location, and then it arrives and someone can open it and can take out the stuff. So this is kind of what happens here. We just send a box of data to this webhook, and then the webhook is able to determine what data elements are contained in this package which it received, and then we can use those fields to work with. And we just simply have this Google Sheets module here on Make, where I connected my personal Google Drive. I specified a particular spreadsheet and a sheet, and then I specify how to allocate the variables that I send to these webhooks. When I take out whatever is in service type, put it in cell B. When you take out the garden size, put it in cell C, and so on and so forth, right? So this tries to mimic whatever we have here, which is currently empty, but it won't be, because I will run this automation and I will quickly show you how it works in practice, right? So this idea is that this is being consistently filled up with information as this AI agent is up and running on the website, and as people can connect to it and interact with it. So it will keep sending data to our webhook and in turn put data into this Google Sheet. All right, so I think we have a pretty good understanding now how it works. If you watch this video so far, I really do appreciate a comment like saying, I don't know, you enjoyed it or you absolutely hated it and it was it was a waste of time. I don't know, like just some interaction. Happy to hear from you guys, and if you subscribe, that's also amazing. So anyway, let's give it a go. Let's see how it works in practice. So I can click this run in the console and then run test to kick off this flow. And you can always see where the execution is by looking at the block. It's like circled with blue. So then you can see that this is where the program is currently standing at. So let's say I'll start by asking a question. So I want to know where you guys are located. All right, so I ask where you guys are located. It will take me to this problem summarization part. You know what? I will just say no. This is not what I wanted to ask, so let's see what happens. So pretty cool. It apologizes and it asks us to specify again what we want to ask. So let me ask another thing. I will ask, so do you have nice fertilizers? Then it is trying again to confirm if it understood my problem correctly. And in this case, I will just give it a green light. So let's say yes or yeah. Okay, so as you can see, it kicked off a bunch of things, because when I said yeah, it forwarded us to this intent classification part, and then immediately it was determined to be a question, which routed us to the database search, and then we pulled the information from the database, generated the answer, and then arrived to this block where we ask for the follow-up. So I can say, yes, I also want to know where you located, right? So we can do this, and I'm expecting that it will spare us some time, because then it would be able to resolve to the yes question known part, and then it would take this route here and arrive back to where are we located now. So let's see if that works. All right, pretty cool. So now let's ask for a code so that we would be redirected to this generate code section. So I can say, I'm expecting that it would pick up on the garden maintenance part and kind of go down this route, but let's see if that happens. Okay, interesting. For some reason, I think this was not not enough for it to determine that it would relate to garden maintenance. Maybe there's some homework for me to look into. But anyway, we can just go ahead and say we're looking at garden maintenance, as I have already said. So let's do it like this. It seems like a plausible reply that the customer might say. So let's see what happens. You can see that in this case, it picked up on the garden maintenance part, which is great. And now it is asking for the garden size. So let's provide a garden size. I mean, let's do 1,200, or let's do it like this, like, sure, my garden is 1,200. As you remember, we have logic in place to separate the number from the text, so this shouldn't cause any problem. All right, so this executed successfully. So there's a couple of things that happened here. You see all this log here. This is because we are in test mode. So if you actually publish this tool and talk to it over the chat or call it over the phone, you would not see this, but this is actually useful for testing. So we see that I provided the answer, and then this garden size variable was assigned 1200. Previously it was 0, like it had no value. And then we display this message. So now we are at this part, this successfully run. We are at this part, display the message, and then we initiate the connection to our calculator tool. It's called an API connection. And very quickly we would receive this text as an output from the calculator tool. And we would put this text into the raw code data variable. And then that raw code variable, along with some other contextual data, would be used to generate our prompt, which is then shown to the customer along with this message here. And now we're listening for the phone number and the name. We can check if this pricing is correct based on our logic. So if I go back to the calculation tool, then and scroll down here, then I have the garden maintenance, and the garden maintenance medium size would be $80, and the medium size would be defined as a garden between 11 and 3,200. So the 1,200, which we specified here, would fall into that category. So that $80 is an accurate price based on our logic. Now we are almost done. I'll just provide my name and the phone number. In fact, let me first just give my name. And let's see if that generates some sort of a reprompt. It should, because we're expecting both the name and the phone number in the same message. So as you can see, it would generate this error. So I can say Marcel, and then I can say something phone number looking thing. And then this should take us to the next step, where we can confirm that this is correct. I will just now confirm and say, yes, this is accurate. And then this last message should activate all of these things and should write the data into our Google Sheet. So let's see if it executes successfully. Okay, so there we go. This run. So now if we head over to our Excel, this is here. So I mean, the formatting is a bit off, but we have everything we need. So we have Marcel, which is my name. We have the service type, which is garden maintenance. That is accurate. We have the garden size, which is 1,200, which is accurate. We have the quoted price, which is the entire message, I think, that retrieved from the calculator tool. So, I mean, this is accurate, but we could potentially refine this to just only input the actual number. And then we have a phone number and the discussion summary. I think this is one of the coolest part, actually. Let me see if I can make it a bit bigger. So it says the customer Marcel inquired about the availability of fertilizers and then asked for the location of evergreen landscapes. After providing the location, Marcel requested a code for garden maintenance. He specified that his garden is 1,200 square feet, and I provided a preliminary estimate of $80 for the maintenance service. Marcel then shared his name and phone number for follow-up, confirming the accuracy of the information. Guys, I think it's really amazing. Like, I don't even know how to put it. This system can run all the time. You can put it on your website. You can link it to a phone number and put the phone number on the website. I have another video where I show how that works. So basically, you can have this system work for you 24/7, all the time, and collect leads, even while you are sleeping. So I think it's really amazing. I hope to see you in the next video. If you watched this so far, make sure to subscribe to don't miss any of my new videos.